I think everything has an expiration when it comes to diet.
Yeah,
I'm not sure if that's what you're getting at, but I think like vegan diet, carnivore diet, it's not the diet. And everything has an expiration. Nothing works the same forever, and tribes knew that as well.
I happen to think that there is an agenda to make men weak.
Oh yeah.
Physically, emotionally,
I think predominantly mentally and emotionally. So people don't even know where their food comes from or look into it, even though we put the descriptions and everything there of what it's like. People have no idea because they've been buying from supermarkets all the time, and then they have that idea in their head, and all they think is, oh, we're just saying it's chemical free, but they don't even know how it's supposed to look anymore.
In this episode, I speak with Dominic Rapson. Dominic is an expert in ancestral nutrition. He's an entrepreneur and a friend of mine based here in Bali. And we went deep down the rabbit hole on food, nutrition, vitality, business, and chasing your dreams. And as usual, we went into some good old conspiracy theories. This one was fun, so stay tuned. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back down the rabbit hole. I am your host, Monty Hook, and today I'm joined by my buddy, Mr. Dominic Rapson.
Good to see you
Do
again.
these ones. Great to have you in here, man. You're my second podcast back in series 2. I've taken a year off. People kept watching the episodes and commenting on the podcast, and it was really interesting, but I've been too busy just building these studios. And here we are. What do you think of Lighthouse?
It's epic. It's really epic. It's finally good to be here, sitting in the room, actually doing a podcast with you here. And I remember seeing it from the beginning when it was just like rubble. And then the launch party and stuff was super cool. So I'm honored to be actually sat here to see this amazing quality of a podcast studio.
Thank you very much, sir. So just a bit of background. We did a first interview. I think you were like episode 5 or 6, and that was would have been 2 years ago now.
2 years ago, yeah.
So we are October 2022. That would have been 2020. So there was a lot of things going down in 2020. That was there's a lot more new, different things going down now.
There is, yeah.
The ridiculousness hasn't stopped. It just pivoted a little bit. So maybe we can talk a little bit about that. But I think some things have changed for you in that time, personally, and in your business and what you're doing. You've been building things. And last time we spoke a lot about nutrition and carnivore diet. That's one of the things you're most well known for.
Yeah.
And you've worked with a lot of athletes on nutrition, and you work with people on disease and all sorts of things. You've got a very interesting background in terms of the wisdom that you've gained over the years and the things that you've studied. But one of the things that I admire about you is just how well-rounded you are in terms of especially your movement and exercise and stuff. Like we've surfed together, you skate. I see you posting stuff on Instagram where you're doing backflips on the beach, you're doing calisthenics, weights. I mean, you're doing so many different things. You're probably, as far as the people, my personal friends and people that I know, the most kind of well-rounded in terms of all these different kind of movements. You are or were a very strong advocate for carnivore diet in the right circumstances. Mm-hmm. I've always been a little bit kind of like on the fence about it, and I've got my own. I'm not saying it's wrong for anybody, but it's very hard to ignore when you see people like you who are so strong in that, and then the way you live your life and the way that you look and how fucking strong you are. It's like it's pretty hard to ignore that. There's some legitimacy in all of that.
Try and live by example, right?
Exactly. So what's unfolded in the last couple of years for you?
Wow. So first, let's say we are the COVID survivors, and that whole period has shifted a lot. As even for you, as I said before we started this podcast, I almost wanted to host you and know what you've been up to, because we've all changed so much during those crazy 2 years, right? Since we last spoke. And yeah, how the world's changed, how when the borders were closed and everything, how we shifted in our business projects and ideas. And you built this during that as well, which is like really inspiring, because like it's a time where it was difficult to build or do much, and unless you were intelligent, persevered, saw through the veil of bullshit, and got through it. I also took that on and decided to change direction in life as well, and start to put more effort into areas where I saw opportunities. And all of us, like, being lucky to live here, well, not lucky, like we worked hard and we made fearless decisions with confidence to be here and do things, and we're making it work. And that's been me for the last 2 years. It's just changing direction is probably the main thing. Yeah.
But you're still doing some of the stuff, working with athletes and coaching, some of that work in the nutrition space. You're still doing some of that?
So not as much. So I limited a lot. We can definitely go into why, but it's a lot of personal reasons, nothing really to do with the world. In fact, actually the health industry has grown a lot since the whole COVID thing. People became more aware of their health in certain aspects. People understood that food and movement is a big aspect of staying virus free or living a good quality life. It was, and especially with how online business grew, it was a good space to be in as well. And a lot of people, I see a lot of pages of people in the same kind of subject of nutrition and movement as I, that were very little, but they kept going really steady and consistent on the social medias of it, and now they've blown up. But for me, the nutrition and the background that I came from, which you spoke about on the last subject, was more, I wanted to change the world. You know, I spent 11 years in nutrition because I had an idea that I would change the world with it. And yes, I did have a big impact. But over those 2 years during COVID, I found that it was regurgitation and getting boring for me. And like as you said, I'm a guy that does so many things at once. I find once I've mastered something, or I feel like I have, I need to move on to the next thing to keep growing and learning. And I feel like I outgrew the nutrition phase, and I was tired of regurgitating the same information I'd already knew worked. And so when I hit that phase, much like yourself as the entrepreneur you are, when you hit a phase of something where you're like, oh, I've done it, it's no longer going to give me growth, whether that's personally or financial or not, you move on to the next big project to keep you occupied.
Yeah, I mean, but for some of us, it's like that's also an addiction. It's like there's a line in the sand of where there's a practical time to do it, and where it's just your mind taking over, going, "Hey, let's do the next thing." And that's certainly been a struggle for me in the past. But
oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know if it's been so much like that for me. It's just more like the reason why I do so many things. Maybe there is a fear of like wasting time or being bored.
Yeah.
But it's also like, to me, the greatest wealth is time and experience. And I want to, if I like something and I feel like I could do it, I want to make sure that I give it a shot at least, and give it enough time to see if I get good at it and fully enjoy it.
Yeah.
And I change direction like that now.
Yeah.
And yeah, the nutrition no longer provides that for me as much. So I work with still some athletes that are serious, and I work with some chronic diseases, but I limited it to 10 people a year, which is not much, not scalable, not really going to provide the bread and butter for my financial lifestyle that I live now here in Bali. But so I'm not going to waste that knowledge.
You've got some businesses here now. So you've got Hunters, which is meat.
Yeah,
Bali rain, by the way.
Bali rain, bursting of energy.
Hunters. So is that only in Bali?
So yeah, Hunters is only in Bali at the moment. We do want to branch out to more of Indonesia first. And this is actually the company that's allowing me still to have an interest, passion, and live my nutrition. Because in terms of coaching people and expanding, not my interest anymore, not something I'm putting time in. Also, my accounts got heavily censored, so promoting that, it's like starting. I did start a new account all over again.
So you mean your Instagram got
origins .nutrition got fully censored.
Is that because of the subject matter you would? Because in the last episode we were talking. Are we still getting censored? We were talking about the jibby jabs.
The jibby jab. I didn't even get censored for that, by the way.
I did.
I did a few times, like shadow ban.
Yeah.
But I didn't get fully censored
I got
for
shadow
that,
banned, yeah.
which is funny. I got fully censored because I didn't even post it. They made it look like I did, which is something unheard of as well. They made it look like it was a post and everything, but it was actually just a story I reshared on my story about the World Economic Forum, talking about the direction of where health and meat was going. And a guy I know, because I follow a lot of people in that space, all very close, had made a comment about it, but actually just shared the image and stats from their website, which they deleted because they got outraged and people like spreading it like fire, like wildfire. And a month after, I got a notification. This thing you posted, which I didn't post, the story, goes against guidelines and blah, blah, it's misinformation, blah, blah, blah. Boom, shut down.
Yeah.
Then I wouldn't appear on anything. My stories went from thousands of views to like 50 people only viewing my stories. My posts wouldn't show up. I wouldn't show up to my own followers. And then anybody trying to follow me would get this guy posts misinformation, blah, blah, blah. Are you sure you want to follow? They'd follow and then I don't follow straight away anyway.
Yeah, actually, that's one of the things that came out is from Twitter and Instagram, like people actually figuring out that the platforms were doing unfollowing, like automatic unfollowing.
Yeah.
It's like,
how do you go from 70,000 followers down to 20-something thousand followers in a few months?
Yeah.
When people aren't even looking at your profile anyway.
Let's see if we can get censored. What was the subject matter of, like, what was the topic, the World Economic Forum, like what were they saying and what were you commenting on?
So I just reshared that they were saying about the stats and percentages of where our food's going to come from.
Okay.
And with
Bill Gates. It's going to come from Bill Gates.
Most probably. Biggest landowner now,
sorry,
right?
Is that going to get me censored? Yeah.
Leave us alone, Bill Gates. We're not attacking Microsoft, your cash cow. He's way bigger than that now. People don't even know what he's up to when it comes to controlling the food and operations at the moment and land. But yeah, it was to do with that. It was stats and percentages on what the World Economic Forum by 2030 saw the standard human diet being and what they proposed for us to be eating.
Which was what?
So you can guess what number one. Yeah, that was in there. But guess what number one was? Like, it was like peasant gruel. Like a mixture of like grains and stuff like that. And then, insects and factory made, laboratory made products.
Hey, have you seen
which
that?
Is very profitable, obviously. And
have you seen that recent video of Bill Gates in his kitchen doing a dance with corn and he's talking about corn and maize? He's like singing.
No.
I'll send it to you.
That sounds cringe.
It is fucking cringe. Like, it is like, it's full cringe fest. And he's just trying to be cool. And it's like, wow. It's like, he's doing a song about corn, about maize.
But maize. Yeah, which owns like so much of the, it's crazy. This guy, monocropping and fooling people into thinking that monocropping is going to save the world while it destroys all our land.
Anyway, let's give people a bit of context because, you're a very strong advocate, obviously, and that's why your business is called Hunters. And the more that I've gotten to actually, since getting to know you and kind of, following a few other people, there's a guy I follow, and he lives in American MD. He lives in Costa Rica, Paul.
Carnivore MD.
Paul Saladino. I follow him. And his thing is the adjacent carnivore, I think you call it, which is where eating meat with fruit and honey.
Oh man, this is what pisses me off about nutrition as well.
Yeah,
you just start creating your own identity in fact, because the nutrition world is filled with a lot of, yes, they may mean well in certain aspects, but it's all to do with fame and who knows the most, and so they keep creating different diets and stuff.
Yeah, and like the Liver King, and you're right. Like most of these people are coming up with something which is their own slight unique slant, and it's
not theirs.
Which is designed just to put them in a box to make themselves more well known.
Yeah.
However, I follow a few. There's another guy, Gary Brecker. Anyway, so a lot of these, I think what has come out a lot in the last couple of years is this. Well, it's not a new idea, but kind of looking at, all right, how can we live more close to nature? And that is kind of revisiting the idea that we learn from like Joe Rogan. He goes out and hunts his own animals like a couple of times a year, freezes it, and eats that all year round. Now, I think that is the thing that I'm always going back to is, well, how did nature intend?
Yeah.
Like, what is as close to nature as possible? And I think we've got to figure out how to go back in that direction. So one of the things that you're an advocate for, and I agree with, is how can we, tap in, like, how can we go back to hunting or have that somehow be part of our lives, or eat that quality of meat, like what you're providing? How do we do that? Because the supermarkets are filled with, chickens with antibiotics and all these kind of things. And there's a lot of things to undo, but how do we undo that? Is there enough wild game in the world that we can hunt? Like,
there can be, and there is a way to do it to the extent. I don't think we'll ever get back to nature. And like this whole way people take it over the top, be primal. And I was like, I love nature and stuff like that, but I don't want to be primal. I enjoy modern things so much. Like, one of the new projects that I'm doing is nothing natural about it, which we'll talk about later. But it's like, our intelligence is what made us like the most dominant species on this planet. And we managed to have a way to have these meats in a way that sustains us better, is more filling, is tastier, produces more meat for us. And there's nothing unhealthy about that. It's still natural to a sense. We were just intelligent, just how we did with vegetables. All of the vegetables we eat today were hybridized from a mustard seed plant and slight variations of it and the plants in nature to make them more palatable to us, less defensive to the human body, and also more plentiful for us. That's the only way the human population could grow, was when we started the agrarian revolution, which came with its drawbacks to human health and human evolution of robustness in our body. But we can't really go fully back to what was before, and I wouldn't want to. I like game meat, and I used to hunt as well, and I used to spearfish a lot. I don't anymore living here. I've got different priorities, but nothing, a fresh moose, venison or anything is never going to be an Angus, a black Angus ribeye steak. No way.
Which is a human invention, really.
And that steak has all the fat soluble nutrients, all of the essential minerals and micronutrients that the body needs for detoxification, for rebuilding, and for our mental health as well, not just physical health. And there's nothing unhealthy about it. And it has the fat and satiation that we actually wouldn't be able to get in nature. So why can some people on a carnivore diet go their whole lives just eating ribeye steaks and be immaculately healthy and satiated from that? It's because we engineered over time cattle like that. But if you were to eat deer or rabbit and stuff like that, you'd have to eat every single part of the animal all the time in order to get all the nutrients and enough fat.
So you're saying that beef has a higher proportion of vitamins and...
Not necessarily a higher proportion, but it has more saturated fat. And people just obsess around protein, but saturated fat and cholesterol is extremely important. If you were to only eat protein, yes, the protein has the tryptophan, carnitine, carnosine, you would still die of protein starvation because you need fat and cholesterol. Your liver does not recycle enough cholesterol over years in order for you to have the intracellular activity in your organs and body to survive. So it's why it's called like rabbit starvation. If you only eat chicken or rabbit, and you're not getting fat somewhere else and eating all the organs, which imagine a tribe shearing a chicken or a rabbit. Are they all going to get a bit of the organ and the, or the glands? No. So it's very difficult. We're in a place where we can be plentiful and survive much easier. So we should use that. And so going back to nature, it's more about the lifestyle as well than it is. Like I say, 80% of what I was doing before is holistic protocols, and the other 20% nutrition.
Yeah. Okay.
And I would say it's just like how you live as well. You live in mindfulness of living a healthy lifestyle in general, not just your nutrients, right?
So what I'm hearing is ideally, I don't, you don't, people shouldn't choose things that they know is not going to be good for them. But if you're living a life where you are hyper-focused on the way you're living your lifestyle, getting your sleep right, getting, movement, getting out in nature, all these different elements, whatever your spiritual practice is, meditation, all these things, if you're doing all those things, then you could be less concerned about what you're consuming. Not less concerned, but you could
can
give
be.
yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're
I
more
agree with
likely.
that.
Your body's more likely to be in tune with dealing with it.
Natural
Whereas somebody
rhythms.
who is not anywhere near as living a healthy lifestyle,
Yeah.
it's going to affect them a different way.
Yeah, because the body doesn't need much nutrition in order to allow the pathways of there's 4 pathways of elimination. To allow those to work, like people think, oh, I've got to eat this vegetable and this fruit to get the nutrients to do this detoxification and go on a cleanse. No, the body does that homeostasis on its own all the time. You just got to give it the space to do so. So when it comes to the actual nutrients, as long as you're choosing clean stuff, which is plentiful, it's just where your thought and your buying power is, and your thought should be where you spend your money.
Yeah.
You know, there's enough ranches, clean animal in Bali alone as well. That's why hunters, we only choose the rearing methods and quality that come from natural methods that aren't pumping it with chemicals, making the cows larger with chemicals, cleaning the product after with chemicals or anything like that. It's all natural, and there's loads of it.
Yeah.
And as long as you're choosing that, you are working with nature.
Yeah.
You know, it's a small percentage of what factory farming is, and not many places in the world are able to financially do that as well. And, you know, these corporate big factory farms, they're supplying like the McDonald's and the supermarkets, and you don't have, if you use your thought and spending power in other places, you can make those other places more plentiful and more worth the individuals to do them, rather than them being bought out by Bill Gates or other companies that take over the land and destroy the land.
Yeah.
That's how you go back to nature, you know? You're still going to use your computer. You're still going to drive your car, your motorbikes, dress in these clothes.
Yeah.
But as long as, you're mindful of your patterns, like here we're under blue light. You don't want to be under this blue light past 8 p.m., for example. You want to mitigate that and eat from clean sources. Simple.
Yeah, and there's some things you can do. So when you are in an environment like this where there's bright lights and there's Wi-Fi bouncing around, and, you know, I mean, I put my phone on airplane mode, but that's not so I can protect my balls as much as it is because I don't want to interrupt the podcast, but I should be doing that as well. But
this morning went to the beach, grounded,
you
got my red light therapy in the morning,
you
know, got my blood moving.
Yeah. So there's so many different things I could take from different people teaching carnivore. You know, I've got friends who are just full vegan and they thrive with their thing. Mm-hmm. And I think you're right. I think it's the way that they are, the relationship they have with that food is probably one of the most important things. Yeah. So when somebody tells me that this diet or this food is the thing, and I know vegans who are saying that more than, funnily enough, it's the vegans who are preaching that more than the carnivores. I think there's also cycles, you know, like I think
everything has an expiration when it comes to diet.
Yeah,
I'm not sure that's what you're getting at, but I think like vegan diet, carnivore diet, it's not the diet. And everything has an expiration. Nothing works the same forever, and tribes knew that as well.
And it was cyclical. So depending on where people lived in the world, what they would eat in the winter would have been different to what they're eating in the summer.
Yes, exactly. It's seasonal. And that's where in this world we live in an abundance where people don't think about that anymore. Yeah. So what diets that are done now could never be done before, and they all have expiration limits as well. You know, like carnivore MD saying that, oh yeah, this is the carnivore blah 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 diet now. It's like, you didn't make that. That's just how it was in nature as well. You have fallback foods. And those fallback foods, most of the time, were not meat because you couldn't get meat all the time. Yeah. Now we can get meat all the time, but your body still has a genetic memory of certain foods that it used. And it's just about how you use them and how you accept them, and not have an identity or a fixation on a certain way of being as your body changes.
Yeah, and I mean, I know I've heard stories of people who can survive on sunlight. And it's like, I'm not convinced that what we're taught about how the body consumes food and gives us energy is all there is. It's 100% it is not, because there's just too many variations. There's too many different people eating different kinds of foods, and then people not eating foods. And like, I know for myself, like I've gone through times when I fast and I don't lose any weight, or I only eat 2,000 calories a day and I put on weight. It's like, the science is not what it says it says it is.
It's all hormonal and chemical outputs. That's what it is. If you think of, I know you're a fan as well. If you think of like the Matrix and the coding of the world and reality, it's the same for our body and how it operates as well. And it's different inputs
Yeah.
on that spreadsheet. If you pull this down and blah, 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 it equals this.
Yeah.
There's that with the human body as well.
Yeah.
And like the only thing that I urge people to look at when you make examples of like vegans or breatharians and stuff like that, is just notice the period of time those codes work for and what happens at the end of those codes expiration limit.
Yeah.
It's the only thing I suggest. And that's not like, you can't preach it. Biochemistry doesn't lie. So it's not about preaching and saying that this is the way, that's wrong. It's just people have to take more note. And these kinds of ways of living have only been around maybe the last 100 years as an experiment. So look back on what's worked for the longest and what they did, and look at what's new and where it's going. And like, you can say, yeah, some people can be breatharian, but when I looked into this and I looked at the data and I looked at the times and the years, these people don't live very long. So it's like, yes, you can do it, but do you want to shorten your lifespan, or do you want to know how much power and strength are you going to have in that lifespan?
Yeah. What's the quality of life you're having?
Yeah.
In between, rather
not
than
just, oh, well, he didn't have cancer. Yeah, maybe he didn't get old enough to have the cancer yet. There's so many things, and people say that all the time with meat, but then you look at the biochemistry, and then you look at the time, and you look at the people out there.
Yeah.
That's what I've always told people to look deeper into, not just like, this doctor says this. It's like, he's just a doctor trying to get his name out there. He might be saying anything, you don't know.
Yeah. One of the things I noticed about, because I've recently have adopted eating more meat. So, and I do notice times when I'm like, okay, I feel like my body needs to eat some vegetables, but I think it's more like I feel like I'm attuned to what my body needs. And the thing that I notice about eating mostly like carnivore is my body had way more natural ability to be satiated and like feel full. And not get cravings for other things. So it was just a lot easier for me to, all right, eat this meal and then I'm fine until the next meal, and not look for other things. Not, my body just felt more steady.
Right.
So I didn't feel like more energetic and, way more power like some people, say, but it was more like you could put it down to saying, felt like I had more discipline.
Yeah, I mean, because it changes your gut bacteria, and your gut bacteria and how your gut works has a big psychological effect on you. So that's why cravings usually disappear after a month. In terms of strength, power, and robustness, 3 to 6 months before you feel any of that difference, really.
Yeah, right.
And it's, unless you're an athlete of some kind, you're probably not going to go that far or really go into it. I had the privilege of trying that out and got to demonstrate to the world how that worked, and also with the athletes I worked with. But for most people, it's not necessary.
Yeah.
It's like, why would you spend that kind of money and eat that volume of meat when you're not looking for that output, or be strict for that kind of time?
Yeah, and it does depend on, what are you doing day to day? Like if you're a vegan and you want to run a marathon, well, that might make sense because that's going to match your body type. If you're doing powerlifting and stuff like that, it's like, well,
need more creatine in that body, more meat. Yeah,
you might not get the same result. So it does depend on what you're doing day to day, what your lifestyle is, and how much movement you're doing, etc.
And it's not being bound to it. That's the thing. People make it a psychological. People make it an identity, and that's the issue with like food. And that's also why I'm kind of glad I'm out of the game a bit, because I'm tired of defending and arguing with people like that, and all collaborating or working against doctors that it's their life and identity, rather than the actual mission of healing people and stuff.
Yeah.
So it was like, for me, a good example was my partner, Antoinette, which you've met. She went full strict carnivore with me as well. And she leaned out. She looked incredible, super strong. People were like, how are you doing this all year round? And then a few years into Bali, her body started swelling up. Her body started like putting weight on. She couldn't stay lean anymore. And I was like, can you give up your identity of this carnivore woman and just eat a mango? Just eat a bloody mango. You'll be so happy when you start eating mango and her body changed.
Yeah.
So everything has an expiration, It's like you're now in this much sunlight. You're losing so much more minerals and electrolytes than you were using up in England because of the heat and the amount you're training. You're a dedicated trainer now. The meat, unless you're putting in a lot of salt, It's not going to catch up to that. You need the glucose now from this for your metabolism and hormones. As soon as she listened and gave up on the identity, body changed. You got to be open to that. And it's not like, oh, now she's a carnivore fruitarian or a carnivore whatever. She's still
carnivore
meat-based, carnivore adjacent. Oh, anyway, sorry if you're watching this, but come on, man, it's just meat-based, like just nutrition. Don't give it, like, even the carnivore name, like I never called myself carnivore. It's like the whole Jesus thing. I never said I was the son of God, but everyone kept pointing their fingers and saying I was. No, I was never carnivore. I was just a nutritionist going on a journey and sharing what that journey was. Yeah, I could say I was meat-based. It's like how people, who are like, I'm not vegan, I'm plant-based, blah, blah, blah. It's like, yeah, okay, you are plant-based. You're eating predominantly meals that are plant-based. That's the same with the meat. There's no carnivore or anything like that.
Fair enough. So what, Bill Gates, what do you think he's up to?
Same thing we always do, trying to take over the world. The pinky and the brain kind of moment.
But with the food, specifically with the food, and
he's securing and controlling the land, people's sovereignty of the land, and the production of, and how and where the production of food is going.
Yeah. So do you think that he's just a opportunist and he can see things?
See, I can't really comment on that, really.
Do you think that he is part of a group of people that have an agenda to engineer the way society works, and that food control is part of it? Do you think he's
I definitely
up
don't
to
think
something?
He's the mastermind.
You think he's up to something?
But I definitely think they're up to something. Yeah. Because, I mean, you control the food, you control the people.
Yeah.
If you want to go into that conspiracy or the ideas and the, not even the conspiracy, I hate using that word now as well, but the proof of what's happening, how financial systems are changing, how food is becoming, and how meat is becoming something for more elites. And you look at the people that they sit around the table with, the higher ups, really, whoever you want to call that or name, they're all eating meat. And they're all living to, they may not look well, but they're living to very long ages because of meat. And if you don't believe that, look at longevity in meat and the studies that have come out and the populations that live the longest and the amount of meat and saturated fat they eat. But yes, I do think that there's a group of people that, especially during this whole COVID time, just especially how the import and certain economies were getting destroyed, were using that as an advantage to use their power to buy up and control the many systems that produce our food in order to have an effect, and especially on the lower classes. I hate using that term as well. I don't see any other human as low, but lower classes and working classes, and diminish them and have them by the balls.
Yeah. I mean, what's hard for people to kind of grasp is, I mean, just that one thing alone is like, could he be doing it? Yeah, maybe. It's people don't want to believe it.
Yeah.
But then when you add up all the things that are going on, like I heard something the other day where Bill Gates has gone into countries and done philanthropy, is the countries where he's been foreseeing going to do business.
And they're all trying him for crimes against humanity.
Yeah.
Or trying to. They can't, but they
want
to.
So many aspects of this situation. There's food, pesticides. I heard something from Dr. Zach Bush the other day, and he was saying in 1992, when this spike of gluten intolerances started happening, they were using Roundup just for pesticides, but then some farmers figured out that if you spray certain yields in the drying process, they get a much higher weight. So they rebranded, they created a new brand using the same product as a desiccant or whatever it is to dry the product. And since then, like allergies and like
skyrocketed.
It's just gone through the roof. So yes, people have a sensitivity or an allergy to gluten, but it's what's in the gluten that is
It's in the gluten. Well, if they did studies and looked in the livers of most families, especially the children as well, and the levels of glyphosate in most families is extremely high in the liver.
Yeah.
Extremely high.
Yeah.
So there's all kinds, and there's more and more new stuff. More and more new stuff being done, and not even sprayed on, genetically from the seed now being altered. And then you have these made into long shelf life products that are even more processed and hyper palatable, with its own set of ingredients that have never been tested on the human body over a long term. Yeah, no wonder everyone's allergy this, sick this, new disease, but it's genetic.
Yeah.
You know, so we've never had it genetically on the lineage way before that, maybe 200 years ago. Like,
so is it enough for people to just choose maybe better choices, like trying to, because even when you, like, especially in a supermarket, something branded as organic, you don't know that it's organic. And
especially here in Bali, there's no such thing as organic either, but some people still label.
And even if something is raised or grown on an organic farm, is certified as organic, well, if the farm next to it and the farm on the other side is not organic,
that's the same thing with Bali.
It's 100% impossible for that to be organic.
Yeah, because they label one bit organic, but then the water from the 3 farms above goes down into that, full of the runoff. But yeah, it's very true. Actually, to be certified organic, I think if I remember correctly, when I was studying this stuff, it was like 3 years for the soil to be free of pesticides, I think. Maybe it was more. Maybe 3 years is too little. But it's like a few years, but it's not much. And then they're barely checked on again.
Yeah.
You know, you just pay. It's just paying for a certification.
Yeah, and it's one of those things. It's like, well, who's doing the organic certification? Because we know all these boards that are certifying things. It's like, well, they're just an organization that has been set up by the industry to put on a front to just claim to the general population that, oh yeah, this is safe.
I get that so much with hunters. Like, is it organic? I'm like, and I always answer, no, it's not organic, and I don't believe in organic association. And you're like, what? I believe in quality rearing methods, and I pick where the meat comes from based on the rearing methods that I identify with, that I think are good. And I look for the same rearing methods in every single import that comes in, all local produce that goes in. Yeah. You know? And it's so funny. I had one guy message the hunters page, and he was like, I'm really disappointed, you know? These chickens, there's no way that they're not antibiotic this and blah, blah, blah. And then he goes to complain that, oh, by the way the meat's cut and the way the meat looks, it's not proper. And I'm like, whoa. So you can tell that the meat is not like that pristine, 100% beautiful looking, immaculate meat from the supermarket, because it's not tampered with, because it's from the local land where the guys don't have the cutting facilities and everything the same. It's like the most natural and basic you can get it. Yeah. So that already shows to you. You go to a supermarket and you buy a chicken breast, it all looks repeatedly the same.
That's what people have in their mind is quality.
And
because that's the way that the supermarkets are designed, so that everything's visually appealing,
colored or used with a gas.
No blemishes.
And it's organic. And he was like, oh, they're also too big to be natural chickens. And I'm like, I don't think you've really seen. So I sent him a picture of what a Java chicken looks like. He was like, oh, it's a big chicken. So people don't even know where their food comes from or look into it, even though we put the descriptions and everything there of what it's like. You know, people have no idea because they've been buying from supermarkets all the time. And then they have that idea in their head, and all they think is, oh, we're just saying it's chemical free. Yeah. But they don't even know how it's supposed to look anymore.
So if there was an agenda, one of my thoughts is that I happen to think that there is an agenda to make men weak.
Oh, yeah.
Physically, emotionally.
I think predominantly mentally and emotionally.
And, you know, you see this showing up in all sorts of different ways in society, but you know, most notably, there's higher than ever rates of suicide, mental illness. You know, men and women don't know how to relate. You know, there's just so many aspects of society where this kind of shows up. Some of the work that you've done in the past has obviously been working with men, especially that's
actually what I phased Origins into. Actually, it became like, now I do like a little bit more, not just in nutrition. I focus more on the actual, what is masculinity.
Yeah. So you were doing a thing, or are you still running it? The Vital Man.
That's what
or?
I'm running. That's what most of my nutrition programs are based off of now. Yeah.
So what besides the nutrition, which obviously you're, that's been one of your main things, but what are the other tenets, I guess, of the Vital Man? How does, because I get the sense that you and many other people understand what's happening in the world, and that drop in masculinity, you could say, like men becoming weak, which I think is an agenda for that to actually happen. How do we go against the grain on that? What is needed, what is required, and what are the tenets of a Vital Man?
It's simply put, it's getting men to understand what their biological purpose in the world is. So you got a lot of people talking in a different way. You got guys like Andrew Tate, for example, who, that's another big censorship topic as well.
Yep.
And you got that approach. But for me, and what I've had a lot of people that have done his program come to me and say, oh, yours was actually more grounded. Because it's not about being this dominant force. For me, masculinity, and in some lines of Andrew Tate as well, it's knowing that if all the men had their minds straight, understood their purpose, understood what they are, and the amount of energy, not just creatively and physically, but momentum-wise, in a tribal way, what we can do to change the world. And obviously, if we're going to talk about an agenda, they don't want that, because if all the most energetic, creative, and confident men, which are always from the age of like 18 to like, let's say 30-something, 40, right, in that bracket there, where we have the strength, we have the confidence, if we got out on the streets and stood together, shit would happen. Things would change, because you can't ignore that force, because verbally, physically, and creatively, we can do a lot of damage to the way the system is. And they don't want that.
Which is also why the censorship of
men who talk like that, who eat a lot of meat, or who, are dominant. And what they do is they try and confuse that to the rest of the population as that's toxic masculinity. That's misogyny. Yeah. So it's not about that. In terms of like that side of misogyny, I do disagree with a lot of that. Like, I've been in a relationship now for 7 years. I was married before. And I think that women, yes, they have their roles in terms of femininity and stuff like that. But in this modern world, they should be striving to be independent, should be striving to be strong, and also help the men in that energy that can change it. But when it comes to the power, if you look at nature, it's always the men that have to be strong to provide and to create. In that sense, women create obviously life and things like that, but in terms of creating change and evolution, it's the male form that needs to be in good integrity, and that's what I've been focusing on. So I do that by focusing on obviously on their nutrition, because you have to have a shitload of testosterone and balanced hormones for your emotional stability as a man. You can't be over an emotional as a man.
Yep.
And I disagree with a lot of the people like, men should be vulnerable and stuff like that. Yes, but it should be tactful. If you are the pillar of your family, if you're the pillar of the relationship, you're a pillar of society, you should be tactical when you're vulnerable.
Yep.
I'm okay being vulnerable with my partner at certain times where I need her femininity and her support to make me go out there and fight the wars and battles.
But there's also times when you need to maybe withhold some things to say, to hold the space for what she needs, and then when the time is right, then you can. Yeah.
Exactly.
Because if you're just constantly unloading
and emotionally wrecked,
well, then the dynamic between you, she's not going to trust you have any strength.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so there's certain things I think you should reserve there. And they're just trying to say that men should just be vulnerable and weak all the time. And yes, there's a lot of men that can't get stuff off of their chest. There's suicide is predominantly men, and all those stats we can go into. But I think that's not down because they can't be vulnerable or express themselves. It's because of the way their lifestyles are, their nutrition, and the way the world is manipulating them.
Yeah.
Once you can get control of those three things, and that's what I focus on, then you are a strong man. You know when to be vulnerable, but you're able to go forth and provide for yourself. And if you have those depending on you, for them also.
Yeah.
But you take and destroy those three pillars of the man, he can't provide for himself. Therefore, he can't provide for anyone, and he can't create any change and go into the world and be a force of dominance.
Yeah, and I think that the way that the world is set up is, like I said, I think there's an agenda to make men weak. But there is a natural inclination for young men, especially. There's a craving. There's a and that's what Andrew Tate is speaking to. And yes, he speaks very aggressively and he's very direct. But that's his,
exactly how he thinks is what he thinks.
Yeah, which is fine because he's cutting through. But one of the things that I do agree with what he says is, some men are they're feeling lost. They're feeling out of purpose. Struggling mentally. Where do you start? And I think the best place to start is go back to the fundamentals, which is go do something physical. Like,
I agree.
Go do something physical. Like, and Andrew Tate says it. Just go to the fucking gym every day,
and feel like a man,
and then report back to me in 6 months' time and tell me you killed yourself. It's like, I might be taking a little bit too far. I'm not trying to, disregard, emotions and that is a real thing, but there's so much power in just understanding that is just it's a thing for men.
That's why you see like the manipulation there. It's like, talk to masculinity, don't go to the gym, don't do this, don't do that, don't be assertive, blah blah blah. And women, you can be like a man, blah blah blah. And it's just creating confusion for young men in that sense.
And what gets pushed in the mainstream media is all designed to make it worse and confuse. Because it's like, in the last 2 years, one of the things that, besides the jibby jabs, that's all slowed down now.
That's all, yeah.
Now it's all about
have we forgotten about that?
the trans situation. Like that's
that's another topic there.
I have absolutely no qualms about whatever somebody wants to identify with themselves as. What I do have a problem with is how that needs to get pushed as an agenda for everybody else to get on board with understanding how you want to identify with yourself. And it's like, I don't care how you identify. Like, you do you. That's fine. But don't make me and everybody else like bow down to and change the way that society works.
Facts. Don't change nature for me to have to accept it. Do what you want. I'm not going to discriminate you. I'm not going to treat you differently. But don't make me have to warp my reality. Also, it's not even just me. Don't make society have to warp its reality just for that. I think that's dangerous.
Yeah, and because like that, where does that end? That doesn't like that's a slippery slope. I heard this story the other day. School in the USA, and they had to bow down to a student and install a cat litter box in the bathrooms because she identifies. What do they call it? A fuzzy? A furry. A furry.
So it's like, where do we start the identification of mental illness? That's the thing. Like, she identifies as this. No, I identify mental illness right now.
Yeah.
And where do we get help and understand that there's a hormonal and chemical imbalance? It was funny because I saw stats. And don't get me wrong, homosexuality, transgender and all of that, not transgender, transvestite, I guess, has been around for a long time. Look at Japanese culture, look at Greek, look at all that. It's been around for a long time. There's deviations in nature as well in that sense. Look at animals as well. So there is that, and that's fine. But when you don't see that there's a mental illness, a prevailing amount of mental illness going on because of the way society is, we're in dangerous territory there.
But what's the hard part for me to grasp is, I think for the most part, most people are not okay with it. No. But it's the media and the government-run institutions that lead. It's like they just bow down. They just because
you're right.
They're the ones, that minority of people are the ones making the loudest noise.
Yeah.
But the rest of us,
well, it appears so because of the media.
That's what I mean.
But if you look closer, like if you go on YouTube and look at the cases and stuff, I just saw one the other day where it was there was a transgender teacher in a school that had these massive prosthetic. Did you see that?
I saw the one.
But you saw it went to court.
No.
Yeah, see, that's what they don't show. But if you look and search, it went to court, and she lost. I believe she did lose, from what I remember, because the parents and the teachers actually came together And as you can see, majority, and when they interviewed the kids about it, majority of them were not
They're not
pleased
okay
or
with
found
it.
it acceptable. And these were kids from, I think they were 16 to 18,
Yeah.
and they were very eloquent in their language and how they put it through, and they were not okay with it.
Yeah.
And these are young kids saying this. These are the new agers, or
Yeah.
you know, what's the new generation? I forget the name. Generation
Z and a half. I don't know.
Z and a half.
I don't know what it is
Yeah.
now.
But yeah, people aren't accepting this.
Yeah.
They're not happy with that. You look on social media, and the majority of like a big red pilled and whatnot. There's a lot of people talking about it.
Yeah.
But you look on the mainstream media, it's like it's just accepted.
Yeah. Well, because they're the ones pushing it. They're the ones pushing it, and that's why I say majority of people just not really okay with it.
No.
But the majority of the people are the ones that don't have the loudest voice.
Yeah.
So those ones are a minority, but they've got the loudest. They've got the loudspeaker.
I think though it is being halted or changed in a positive way. We're just not hearing about it.
Yeah.
Because especially in America, where the movement's pretty huge, right? If you look at most states, where the culture is still very rooted in the old ways and what America stands for, you don't hear much about them, but they're very big. And all you're hearing is what, like LA, New York, Miami, maybe a few cities here and there. But you look at the overall bigger population, they're not having it.
Yeah.
They're not having it.
Yeah, it's a very...
They understand. They're still rooted in values, and they're still got that family structure.
Yeah.
Most of the broken family structures and mental illness is all in these big cities that are famous.
Yeah, it's very interesting times. So you were telling me earlier that you've got a new venture that you're working on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
tell us about that.
So it's got nothing to do with any of my experience really. Yeah, so right now, a little bit of coaching still. Hunters is obviously the big thing with the meat. I'm mostly getting into the cafe space. Inspired by a lot of people as well doing it well. Like you guys have to come here and check out Lighthouse and come drink a coffee and stuff. It's really good. And so I'm getting into that space. Opening up a place called Dawn Patrol, which is like more like of a surfer vibe. Nothing as lush and nice as this, but it's a small step in the right direction for me business wise, learning with it. But my main passion, what I'm most excited about, is motorcycles.
Yeah.
And I have been in Bali now. I've been here 3.5 years. How long have you been here now?
I've been here since 2019, but I was here for 3 years before, so I've been here 6 years altogether.
Okay, yeah, go ahead, 2019. Yeah, so like 3.5 years now. And the one thing I loved about Bali is just the scenery. And the best way to see that scenery here is getting on a bike. Yeah. And I've been riding big bikes for a while. Here in Indonesia, we call it moge. It's like slang for like besar, big motorbike.
Yeah. You still got the Ducati?
I traded it in. I got an even bigger bike now. I had an 800cc Ducati Hypermotard, which I customized for racing. It was a beast. And now I'm on a Kawasaki ZX-10R, which is a 1000cc Super Sport. Okay. And that's what I'm blasting myself around the mountains here. Wow. So I've also been going to Mandalika in Lombok for the MotoGP. I've been racing on the track. I'm actually going this weekend. Really? Yeah, I'm going to go track racing again. But yeah, bikes has been a big part of my life. That's also another way I can never go fully primal and live in the bush. I want to ride bikes and wear leather suits and feel like a superhero.
But you know what? Like some people have actually told me that, we put so much power in meditation as being sitting still and closing our eyes, and and that's a thing. But so many people have told me that when you're riding a motorbike fast and you just like full on inflow and you just got like a hyper focus, it's the most powerful. It's like a meditation.
It is.
Now I can't relate to exactly that because I think I've been a little bit timid about riding bikes because my father and my uncle, they were both like heavily
gearheads.
Yeah, and awesome. They've both nearly died a couple of times, and
I think we all have that. That's why we like it as well.
I think maybe mum's had a few words in my ear when I was young, and that stuck. So, and also I have a tendency to want to do stupid things as well. So
I think it's called being a man. That's why we die a lot earlier than women most of the time.
Yeah, but maybe I'll get myself a 150 and I'll just start with that.
Yeah. Slowly.
So, you're doing some kind of business around the motorbikes, or?
Yeah. So I'm throwing myself in and I'm making a project. So I'm integrating myself with the communities here.
Yeah.
And it's not only just about what can be done. I'll get into where it's going, but I just love the nature and the people here. And this way I get to see a lot of it in a fun way while being in that meditation flow state. And I get to learn more about Indonesia. I'm like, my Bahasa Indonesia now has improved so much because I'm hanging around my Japanese and Balinese friends riding everywhere. And what I'd like to do is build on a project which becomes like a docuseries all around Indonesia, which has been done several times, but not in the manner that I want to do it, where it's more adrenaline based, where it's sport bikes, 1000 cc's, actually cornering, knee down on the pavement, going to the track and racing, and just showing off the beauty of the place and how you can travel and have a great time on sports bikes there.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool, man.
So the best roads to ride, the best places to see, where to stay, what to eat, who to go with.
Yeah.
Where do you find these bikes in Indonesia?
That's cool.
Yeah, and it's for the Indonesian market that I want to get into.
Yeah.
Not the expat tour. Yes, they will love it as well, and I'd love to travel with it, because every day I wake up, I want to do this meditation every day. I want to get on that bike. Everything disappears, and it's just a creative. I only get creative when I'm on the bike. There's no other emotions.
It sounds like a very cool thing to do, but what would you say to people that might have their own dream in their own way? Because I mean, that sounds like it's actually a lot of courage to go from something that is, I'm an expert in this, I make money out of this, I'm quite comfortable in this, I enjoy it, and then to go and do something which is like a passion project, which you don't know where it's going to lead. Is it going to pay the bills? You know, it's a leap for most people, right? So what would you say to people that have that thing in their mind, like they've got this what seems like a pipe dream in the back of their mind, and maybe they got, you know, the wife or the mother-in-law saying, you can't do this, you know, what? How do people make that leap? Or is this just a thing for you? Like you're just made like that?
I don't know. It's just like I've always been very well supported in life by my mother, by my close friends. I've always made good friends that, you know, believed in me, and I share with them straight away what I do. And also I have a partner as well. I have a partner that believes in you and sees you, you know, as this person up there, no matter what you do, and they never question you. They only think, oh, you like that? That's cool. I believe in you, and they support you. Even if they see the bank account going down and down for you, pouring money into something that's got nothing to do with them or anything, but they don't question it. You know, that's important. Have these pillars. But as for yourself, and I can only really speak as a man, back in nature, you knew what you wanted to do and what you had to do. And you didn't think, what if I fail? And you didn't think, what if I come back without the hunt? What if I die? You just did it because it was a part of your life and you wanted to do it or you needed to do it. That's how I do everything in life. I no longer see myself excited waking up to study nutrition, to make programs and to speak about it. What do I wake up and want to do? I wake up excited to get on my bike and to do this. How can I make it my lifestyle now? Which means, how does it make money? Well, first of all, it makes me happy. I want to do it and I want to get better at it. So the time-wise, I'm 100. And that's the first thing in anything you do, right? Time-wise, passion-wise, it's got to be 100. The money will come after. And so, yes, I've left a business that was my bread and butter. Okay, that was making me the thousands I needed to live here and to buy the bikes and stuff like that. So I do believe you have to work and create some structure, especially in your early 20s. Make sure you have structures there that enable you to keep sustained enough. You may not be able to have and buy anything you want all the time. I'm in that position. I'm actually my financial lowest I've ever been because I'm pouring money into this and it's not paying back. I'm keeping the other businesses running and I'm enjoying the process and learning, but everything is going into this. So that's how I tackle it. I'm like, what can I do to keep growing here and keep sustained in order to then develop this and make this the big thing?
Yeah.
And that's how I move through projects. And then maybe in 10 years time, if it's extremely successful, I still might be like, okay, I'm done with it. Now I want to rally car. I don't care what it is, but I always go everything 100. If I know I'm going to put the time into it and I want to put the time in it.
Yeah.
And then I just go full confidence with it and I just do it. And I put the money into it And even if it doesn't make it back, to me, the greatest wealth is experience and time. And so even if it doesn't make the money back and I go broke from it, the experience and time that went into those years is the most valuable thing. And that's all I think about.
Yeah, and that approach, that attitude is one of, well, you doesn't matter what happens, you can't fail. So
I feel that way.
Which is the very thing which
and you could always go back
yeah.
to what made you money, and you still have that expertise. That doesn't leave your brain.
Doesn't go away.
You could always
yeah.
go back.
And that could be, you never know where those things merge. You know, there could be something in the world where those things.
I could be riding a bike to the top of some crazy Indonesian mountain and cooking a steak up there. Yeah.
You're eating a steak while you're riding your bike.
Cooking it on the exhaust is a whole new. But yeah, I mean, that's me in a nutshell. I confidently move in whatever I'm passionate about, and I don't find an identity in my career. Like, same thing I admire about you as well. Like, who is Monty? He's not necessarily this building or all of the businesses you've owned before that have made you successful and the years you've put into work. You're somebody that is full of life. If I asked you, like, who are you and what you do, you'd be here for hours telling me all the things you've done and what you do now. And that's how I think people should move, you know?
Yeah, and I think you're right, because a lot of people, they become an expert in something and, like, this is my vehicle, and then they get success out of that. They make money out of that, and then they box themselves into that,
and then they can't leave,
and then they might have some other thing that they want to work on, but it takes something big to be able to just drop the identity, as you say. It's like you got to figure out how to not be stuck in that, because that's what happens to most people.
Most people, yeah. This is what I do.
Most people get comfortable, not just from a financial perspective, but from the point of view of, you know, this is what made me, so why would I change that? Kind of thing.
The moment you don't wake up excited about something and you don't enjoy or want to research further into it, and that's how it was getting to me with nutrition. I'm like, you know what? I'm tired of getting out. I didn't even want to open my phone and Instagram and social medias and emails. Like, I'm tired of going in there to argue something I've already affirmed to myself. I'm tired of studying something that I don't see going anywhere anymore for me. And I'm tired of regurgitating the same information and dealing with people, you know, who are arguing or trying to change what you're teaching. So to me, I was like, there's no energy there to grow or move forward.
Yeah.
Where does that energy want to go from me? Where would I be happy spending it? Oh, it's this? Okay, well, the only way it's going to work is if I start just putting the time in with confidence, not scared about failing, not scared about being wrong. Yeah. And making that, and then you meet and make the right connections with people, and then those people help reaffirm you, because they're like, oh, that sounds awesome, I want to be a part of that. Or
and you don't have to have the answers.
You don't.
Like,
I definitely don't right now. I'm learning a whole new industry and stuff. Like, I'm not good at vlogging. I'm not good at editing.
Well,
I'm not good at any of that, but I'm doing it.
I mean, we've built probably one of the world's best podcasting facilities, and people ask me all the time, "Oh, what's your background in podcasting?" I'm like, well, I didn't have a background in podcasting.
Like doing it.
In 2019, well, I wasn't even doing it. In 2019, I was like, I scaled myself out of the business to the point where I had time. I was like, okay, well, I feel something was like, I want to start a podcast, but I wanted to start at the top end, and I was coming back to Bali. I'm like, I'm going to move back to Bali, and I looked for a studio. There was no studio here, and the idea just evolved, and I learned everything. The guy that's behind these cameras here, which equipment to use, soundproofing rooms. I didn't know any of it. It's not my background. I just figured it out as it went along. It's like, it's amazing what unfolds when you have the idea and like you like you said, go 100 in. It's like,
it's funny. You made a point there as well. Like, you had the opportunity to do it at the top end as well. I think that's a really good point to touch on as well. Because for someone like me who's much younger, if we compare success in like what you've done in your business and everything like that, I'm nowhere near that. But a lot of people get caught up, and I had hard words from a friend of mine who inspired me to actually chase this. I did have inspiration from a friend. I was going to do it anyway, but he really he made the fire from this to this big. Because I was like, oh, you know what? I had to reinvest the money in hunters. I have to take care of hunters, and I got to reinvest the money in this. I've invested the money into and time into this cafe I'm opening, and blah blah blah. So I need to wait till I have what I need in order to start, or maybe I need to take out a loan and take out more investment and get people on board before I start. And he was like, Nah, like not everybody has to start like that. If you have the ability, well done. That's epic. Like you had the ability to go into this podcasting that you enjoy and love with this, which is incredible. But for most people that can't, and this is how my mind was as well. My friend was like, mate, start with the bare minimum, but you just gotta start. Don't focus on what you can't do, focus on what you can. And he was like, mate, there's people out there that are doing what you're doing, already making thousands of dollars off of it with just 2 GoPros. And you're here asking for a loan for like the new Sony and then this and that and all of this and a proper sound system. He said, no, buy the bare minimum of what you can or borrow it from friends. I borrowed cameras from friends to begin with and just started filming and doing it. And now like I've only been on the TikTok and YouTube for this for like a few weeks now. It's just literally that new and the numbers are climbing already.
Yeah.
And then I got that interest, build that baseline. And then as soon as the money comes back or starts, boom, it's just going to explode.
Yeah.
But you got to just start, right?
But, and yeah, it's that passion and energy that you're putting into it also that is going to be the thing that you're going to attract sponsors, you're going to attract, all sorts of, collaborations and
just
opportunities.
Just got my first one, actually. I'm just stoked
sponsor.
About. Yeah, just got my first sponsor. And I'm not even like over 1,000 subscribers. No, I would love that. BMW Kawasaki, if you're listening, give me a bike or 2. Maybe 2. Yeah, I need 2. No, just that like local,
Yeah.
But that's what it should be. Like, also as well, like if you're going to be doing things like that, it's like what you're doing here at Lighthouse as well, with all the local brands and everything like that. Use this opportunity to also lift these other brands with you and help other people in your community. That's priceless as well. And
I mean, that's, Lighthouse was a very strange one because I've built businesses before, but nothing has ever been felt like it's in flow as much. And before, I think the older, maybe I'm just wiser now and more trusting now, whereas before it's like I would build businesses and I'd be strictly about the numbers and, less in tune with my intuition and letting the business unfold and helping other people. And it was more about, all right, I just got to build this and make money and then I'll help people and then I'll do these things.
There's a good aspect to that first, though, when you need to work on yourself.
Oh, absolutely. But this project has been way more in flow and just attracted the right people at the right time and the right partners. And actually, the person who had the lease before me, she put it up for rent, and then I was the first person to ever see it in 2019. And then she became an investor. She did all the architecture and the interior design. So all the interior design is her.
Wow.
So
your collabs have been amazing. And the collabs you're doing now, even with like the cafe side of things as well, it's doing right. It's good.
Thanks, man. Yeah. So I think there's something in this this conversation we're having around throwing yourself into something and, not knowing what's on the other side, but if it's got the right energy and it's got that attitude, that you're talking about of just putting yourself into it and following your dream and following your passion, then amazing things can unfold.
I think this touches on a good subject you brought up earlier about men as well and mental health. It's like we've been sold this thing in the media as well that if you're not successful by 20-something, you're never gonna be. And it's like, so can I ask how old you are now?
I'm 44. I'm almost 45.
And still bring more new successes, still building new things and stuff like that.
Well, I actually, the older I get, the more I feel like I'm just getting started.
Right.
And I don't know that that's ever going to end. I don't know that that's ever going to stop.
That's a good way to look at it. I don't think it does really if you're consistently living a fulfilling life and trying to get the most out of it, right?
Yeah.
But that's another thing as well. Don't be born in that light because we had so many people. That's another thing we noticed during the whole COVID time, the whole crypto thing.
Yeah.
We had kids that's still living in their mom's basement and stuff like that, their parents' basement, whatever. Boom, became a millionaire over a few months, right? And then they think, okay, I got the money now, but they have no idea what being a man is. They have no identity of who they are. They have all this money. And that's not actually success. And then they lose it all and then expecting the next boom. And they're never going to appreciate hard work again. And they're never going to appreciate that if they don't make that money again within a few years or not, that they're never going to have it. And it's like, we've been sold this idea that
there's something to be
like that.
There's everyone's looking for the quick wins. And we seem to admire people who have had the quick wins more than people that had the slow grind. Like I had my first business when I was 8 and I feel like I'm still figuring it out. I'm still trying to make it. And it's like, I wouldn't trade that for the
experience, the hard work.
The one that I say
losses.
the one I say all the time is, if somebody came to me today and said, "I'll give you two choices. I'll give you $10 million now, and I'll give you $10 million. $10 million. You don't have to do anything anymore, or you can spend 10 years figuring out how to make the $10 million, but you're guaranteed the $10 million at the end of the 10 years." I'll take the 10 years. I'll choose the 10 years every day of the week.
That's dope. I like the way I like that example for sure.
Because what you learn on the 10 years is just like it's going to make me a better human. It's going to make me appreciate the money at the end of it. It's going to help me understand my value and my place in the world.
Connections,
and what do I do? What do I do next? And how do I raise my children and all of that?
It's funny. You could lose 10 million in a year if you don't know who you are, where you're going, or what you're doing with it.
Which is why people lose money when they get it so quick.
Oh.
Yeah. Dominic, this has been awesome, man. It's been awesome to have you back in the studio and jam. And we don't see each other much. It's crazy. We live the traffic in Bali is pretty bad these days.
It's a mission to get across.
By the way, if you're not in Bali, come to Bali. It's wonderful. It's paradise.
And you've got Lighthouse here. You don't have to go through the treacherous, notorious, and infamous.
We do probably have the best air conditioning in Bali. Not in here, in the main room. It's a complete overkill. We've got these 3 massive systems, and there's only one of them ever turned on. It's crazy. So anyway, come to Bali. Dominic, thank you so much. How can people find you? I know you're on new adventures, and you're telling people about the TikTok. Do you want to share the TikTok?
Yeah.
Let's blow his TikTok.
Blow it up. Come on. Viral, guys. FYP. It's Moge Life, which is in Bahasa MOGE.life, Moge Life, which is the bike page. If you're interested in bikes and travel around Bali, that's for you. It's also on Instagram. But if you're interested in more in my nutrition and what we spoke about here, the more serious subjects and stuff, it's hunters.bali. And from there, you'll see a lot of my nutrition and other pages as well. But
you'll see Dominic cutting up pieces of liver and dipping it in honey and salt and eating it like it's...
topless by a pool. Sure.
Awesome, bro. Thank you so much for coming in. We'll make sure everybody's got the links to come check you out. And we'll look forward to doing round 3 in another 2 years, maybe.
2 years.
No, I don't want to do another year off.
That much time in between for subjects.
No. All right, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. See you next time back down the rabbit hole. Make sure you go check out Dominic.